This is the brand new Range Rover Velar. It's an entirely new Range Rover with a curious name, but it turns out that the name Velar isn't new at all.
Back in the 1960s, Land Rover was developing the first ever Range Rover, and they didn't want the press to break the story before the official launch. So they started a sneaky little side company and built the prototypes for the Range Rover under that name. The word was taken from the Latin velaris, which means to hide. And that's pretty ironic because the only thing you can't do in a new Velar is hide. This thing is a proper head turner.
The Velar is thoroughly beautiful. I might go so far as to say it's the best looking SUV on sale today. It's just stunning inside and out.
In case you haven't been keeping track, let's quickly go over the Range Rover range. At the bottom, you have the Evoque, the most compact of all the Range Rovers. It actually set off the design theme for all of their modern cars. And then you have the Sport. That's pretty epic, very capable both on and off-road. And right at the top, you have the Vogue. That's the one that the Queen drives. It's very large and very expensive, and it makes you feel like royalty when you drive it. The new Velar slides into the range between the Sport and the Evoque. But in terms of pricing, that's where things get a little bit blurry.
And that's because at 1.4 million rand,
this top spec V6 Velar costs 272,000 Rand more than an entry-level Range Rover Sport. And even more confusingly, the HSE Velar and the HSE Sport are identically priced. Confused? I don't blame you. So let's try work out why you would spend this kind of money on what should be a lesser car. Well, for starters, the Velar has a pretty potent engine. Flick it into Sport. Nice! I think it could sound better though. This engine was nicked from the Jaguar workshop while their engineers were down at the pub. And I know how good it sounds in the F-Type, but it's tuned to produce 30 kilowatts more than in the equivalent Range Rover Sport. That's 280 kilowatts, and that means that while the Range Rover Sport will take 7.2 seconds to get to 100 kilometers an hour, this Velar does it in 5.7. And it's much lighter than the Sport, 260 kilograms lighter, and that means it's much more nimble. It's also a lot lower center of gravity. In fact, right now, I think the Velar has the best handling in the Range Rover range. But there's one key difference between the Velar and the Sport, and you can hear it straight away. As it stands, you cannot buy a V8 Velar. Nope, if you want that wonderful big engine V8 growl and nearly 400 kilowatts in your Range Rover, you're still gonna have to buy a Sport.
in the world of cars, things evolve at breakneck speed. And of course, with the Sport now a few years old, the Velar benefits from the latest and greatest interior features that the brand has to offer. In fact, you almost have to take it out of the real world to appreciate how advanced it is.
This interior is exceptional. It's pretty remarkable, actually. It's definitely going to impress your friends and quite possibly get you laid. Two huge touchscreens dominate the center console, and at first it's actually a bit intimidating. Range Rover wants this to represent a new way of interacting with your car, but it's a little bit fussy. I think in some instances a button could have just done where all these touchscreen thingies are. That said, it is pretty damn cool though. And then there are these seats. They're adjustable in 18 different ways. I didn't realize that that was
physically possible, actually. They'll cool and heat your backside, and they'll give you a massage, but I don't know if they're that comfortable. They're a bit firm, and it's not just me that thinks so, my colleagues do as well. And the Velar has Range Rover's terrain response system, which you operate down here. And as good as it might be, I just do not see owners of this car taking it off-road. Maybe some gravel roads, but if you want to tackle the rough stuff, there's plenty of other Land Rover products for that. And then, of course, with piano black surfaces, you spend your entire life cleaning fingerprints. And then there are the back seats. The rear seats are sculpted and shaped so that they're only really comfortable for 2 passengers. In that sense, this isn't exactly a family car. And rear legroom isn't impressive at all for a car of this size. I'm pretty short, and with the driver's seat in my driving position, look at that. That's not much legroom. Imagine the driver was over 6 foot. It's going to be quite cramped back here. But the rear seats are quite well appointed. There's individual aircon. I've got 2 USB ports over here. That's great for charging devices. And if you opt for the rear entertainment system, there are 2 HDMI ports as well. But let's take a look at the boot. And it really is of a decent size. It's a bit smaller than that found in the Sport, but it is larger than the boot in its cousin, the F-Pace. And using these convenient handles at the back, the rear bench folds in a 3-way split. So you really shouldn't battle to squeeze in surfboards and hockey bats and dogs and whatever else life throws at you. Right, let's recap. Power and handling, V6 for V6. The Velar's got it on the Sport. Looks, yeah, the Velar's got that too. Interior, super advanced. But the rear seats in here, not as good as the Sport. So if you don't need the rear seats that often and you just want to look good around town, the Velar is for you. But for proper off-road ability, for long-distance cruising, for stomping V8 performance, and maybe a little bit more stature out on the road, the Sport possibly remains the better all-rounder. And that's a bit strange. Going forward, I see a bit of a sibling rivalry here. There's just something about the Sport that's missing in the Velar for me. Maybe a Range Rover just needs a big V8 engine, but I don't think it's as simple as that. I think the Sport retains all the aspects that make Range Rovers iconic. The Velar represents the best of this brand's future, whereas the Sport represents the best of this brand's past. And I suppose it's up to you to decide which one you want to buy into.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, maybe give it a like, and definitely subscribe to be the first to see our videos as they drop. Yeah, definitely do that.